Welcome to Livestream. We're going to be looking a little bit at the new Logic Pro. I'm sure you've all seen already that the new update for 10.8 came out yesterday for Mac OS and 1.1 for iPad OS, the Logic Pro for iPad version. I'm on a little different setup. Today I'm not at my home station, and so we're gonna see if we can make this whole thing work with my phone and an iPad. So definitely a little bit in a different place. And so let me know if you can hear and if you need anything adjusted. But we're gonna be really talking about a few different things. I've seen a lot of information about the big updates that have come out. And one of the things that I prefer to do is look at some of the small updates that are with this. Let's start by looking at the release notes for the iPad version, right? And what we have are a number of things that I have questions about still. So we have the biggest changes to both the iPad version and the Logic version being the mastering assistant, which I've now been able to mess with for about a day. It's huge step in the right direction. It's still essentially just a bunch of the existing Logic tools as far as I can tell. Looks like Match EQ with some of the other effects just combined, but I don't necessarily think that this is a brand new. I mean, there is some elements of it that are requiring the neural engine, supposedly, and that's what's making it so you have to have the silicon to do some of the mastering presets. But other than that, we're not looking at a huge update here. For the OS 10 version, the Mac version of Logic, we certainly have now, we now have some of the things that came from the iPad version, right? We'll talk about that in a few minutes. That's pretty common for Apple to do, to put something in one of the mobile versions and then bring it over to the Mac later. This means that we're going to have better compatibility between the iPad version and the Mac version. That means good things. And those plugins are really awesome. I think they're some of the best things that have come out from Logic. And if you haven't used them yet because you don't want to use the iPad version, then great. This may be the right time for you to actually see that and use them a little bit. Other than that, and like I said, we'll get into the actual release notes here. We have a number of smaller things on the iPad version. Let's start with that for a few minutes. We have a number of smaller things. For the new feature list, and we're just going to go like down the list here a little bit. Let's see if I can, I don't know, we'll leave it just like that. Maybe put it in just a little bit more. If you can't see this, that's fine. Just pull it up on your own screen, but you can do a search on Google for Logic Pro for iPad release notes, or the way that I did this, if you're in Logic, you can come here and say, what's new? And it will pop that open for us. So the new features, Mastering Assistant being number one, and then we have 5 other ones. Record live into Quick Sampler. So you can do that with the microphone or any connected audio device. That's important to note. So that's something, for instance, we could do on the OS, on the Mac version, but we couldn't do immediately on the iPad version. So new feature, questionable terminology. Really what that means is that it's just a feature they're pulling from that should have probably been there all along. Next, we can interact seamlessly between apps like voice memos with added support for split view and stage manager. Okay, cool. I won't be doing tons of that, but certainly I think anytime we could do that on like the Mac version. Next, select and drag multiple files at once from the Files app to quickly build drum kits or add stems to a project. Again, seems like they're saying, ooh, new feature with something that really should have been there all along, in my opinion. Let's see, two more. Instantly audition samples, loops, or instruments in the browser by sliding your finger up or down. We're gonna test that out in a second, or we could just do it now real quick. Well, let's do it real quick. I guess. Okay, I think that's what they're talking about. Cool, up and down, more access. That's potentially really useful. And then the last thing was the free hybrids texture sample alchemy pack, which includes a collection of the 70 patches and 80 loops built. Awesome, right? So a little bit of new sounds. 1, 2, 3, 4 features, which should have already been there. And then the mastering assistant. Okay. Enhancements. There's a bunch more enhancements. We're not going to go through all of these. These are things like you can rubber band select. Rubber band selecting now adds to the existing selection, or swipe gestures, or it's now possible to record directly into Quick Sampler, which was already up there. Interesting. There is now an inspector for configuring mixer groups. You can stop the track freezing. Let's see. Copy and paste plugins in the plugin area. Ooh, again, things that essentially what's happening is that they're saying, you know what, we built this software, it wasn't done. We knew that it was going to need some of these things, and now we need to add them all in, and we can make a really big list of the features for them, right? So, okay, great. We can copy and paste plugins in the plugin area. Okay. Moving on, 32-bit float audio recording is now supported. That's this one right there. That's a big deal for anyone using hardware that supports that, right? So that's actually probably should have been in a different place. We could handle 32-bit float files before this, but we couldn't record in that format until now. Bunch of smaller things. But again, things that should already have been there. Some stability and reliability features, improved stability with AUV3, version 3 extensions. Let's see, copying and pasting a noise gate between channels makes it so we don't quit anymore. I didn't know that was happening, but cool. And then improved stability when tapping multiple times on the same pop over button, which I have had to do. It feels like sometimes it's not working when you do that. Let's see. Performance. Performance is improved when toggling track stacks, scrolling the piano user or piano roll using an external device is now smoother. Like, I'm assuming a mouse, maybe? Okay. And then there's an issue with not enough memory. In my opinion, what comes next is perhaps the most important thing that Apple decided to do with this version. And of course, no one's talking about it because this doesn't affect most of us, but it does affect a really important group of users of Logic. So I don't even know how many there are here, but this is, I don't know, is that 100? I mean, there's a lot of voiceover enhancements. VoiceOver now does what it's supposed to do. It's like they left VoiceOver off of this version of Logic, and now they've added a lot of it back in. I don't know to what extent. So I can't tell you, have they done enough for users that need the voiceover functionality, or have they just barely done some of it? I don't know, but they're like the biggest chunk of these release notes for the iPad version are the voiceover tools. That's cool. Let's see. Subscribing to Logic Pro now correctly works on networks using a VPN. Woo! And then a bunch of sampler, quick sampler, and sample alchemy functionality, things that were apparently wrong, but now working. And there's a few things in here which are like the equivalent of semi-new features, but just small things. Let's see, Beat Breaker got a couple of 2 new fixes. Mixer. It is now possible to record our multiple tracks in the mixer with a swipe gesture. I love that feature in on the Mac, OS 10, right? I say that. I love that feature on the Mac version of Logic, and how you could always just click one and then move it down the row and it would do them all. Perfect. Let's see, changes made to the input gain when connected to a compatible. Okay, cool. Let's see, a bunch of smaller things here. I'm looking through this to see if there's what else I was going to say about any of them. Just some enhancements, really. Double tapping a send knob now sets this to 0 dB. Okay, bunch of stuff, cool. Plugins and extensions, a similar list of fixes. Nothing here that is really a big deal. I don't think. I'm trying to see if there was anything else. I think we're pretty good with that. Just a bunch of fixes. I mean, it's things like this right here. The recording MIDI from the arpeggiator plugin now works after recording some MIDI, removing the plugin, and then reinserting it. I mean, they've got some good beta testers, right? If they're finding that level of bug, and yet not always fixing the bugs that everybody wants, I still hear some stuff. Audible glitches getting removed. Let's see. It is now possible to reorganize the order plugin during recording in the plugin tracks view. Okay, cool. Some plugin tile fixes, play surfaces, step sequencer got some fixes here, sound library and browser, drummer, drum machine designer, round tripping. So that's the Mac to iPad version, one fix. I'm surprised there's not more. Can't be smooth, I bet, in every situation. Live loops, automation, takes, Apple Pencil, flex time, flex pitch got one. Lessons, that's part of this, got something. Key commands, importing, sharing, exporting, undo, global settings. There's actually some MIDI 2.0 things that have been added to both versions. I don't know. So here's the problem. And this list does go on a little bit longer. There's some general things. Here's the deal. Let's go into Logic for a second. We're going to close our mastering assistant. We're going to come in to our mixer. Let's open up the EFM1. Here's the problem. Still. We'll make that big. We'll go over, close the library. This is the EFM1. Just the EFM1. They didn't fix any of the major problems that we had with this. They didn't fix the fact that it's impossible to use these instruments still. It's not possible, but it's like visually we get used to some of the plugins the way they were, and we can find the features based on this visual identity of the instruments. Now we come in here and everything's a knob or a slider. And I don't even recognize which instrument this is. You know what I mean? I know what it is based on the name, but one of two things are happening here. A, they don't know how to do this, and they haven't figured it out. And so instead of making a change prematurely, they're working on some models to make these instruments actually more usable. B, they discovered what's probably true, and that is that people use their instruments as presets, and 9 out of 10 users don't program stuff, right? So 1 out of 10 users might use all of this and say, what? I'm outraged. I can't as easily program in here. To which Apple says, great. You're also the same users who complain about subscription models, right? So you're the ones who complain, and you're the ones who want all the advanced features. We could lose 1/10 of our users and still be fine. I'm making that up. All of that is made up. But it's not so bad, or so far of a stretch of imagination. Let me see. I'm just finally getting the chat loaded on my screen here. Do. Looks like they messed up a bunch of them. But I do see LA Winter and Yolan. Keep all the chats coming because I just finally figured out. I'm using my phone today because I'm not at my normal station for a couple more days. Starting next week, we're going to do a bunch of videos on the Logic, the desktop version. I know there's already been a bunch of videos done, but sometimes it has some benefit to hear from multiple perspectives. So that's what we're going to do. Cool. Awesome. Okay, so let's take a peek, and I'll show you how to get there because maybe you don't know. But in case you don't know, Logic Pro release notes, right? That's as difficult as that is for Mac. Okay, so we're going to do a similar thing right now with these because that's what we do. 10.8 as opposed to Logic for iPad 1.1. Those are our corresponding things. I think branding wise, it would have been nice to have them be the same numbers, but logistics wise, it maybe makes sense not to. What we're looking at with this, the new features, and there's actually some cooler small ones that I want to talk about. Let's see, the first thing, we have the Mastering Assistant with its professional palette of intuitive sound shaping tools, right? If you don't have silicon, you don't get all of the options here. There's some of these that are just silicon, which is because of the neural network functionality. It's not that that couldn't be done in a different place, but because of the way it's designed, it doesn't work in any other place. But certainly, those tools could have been designed differently, but they're using the cool things that the silicon offers. Then we have sample alchemy, video coming soon. And we have the Beat Breaker, which I love. Both of those are amazing tools. Then we have a couple new ones, new like tools, not plugins, but tools. The slip and rotate, the ability to record in 32-bit float, and the new hybrid textures. Now, on a normal day, this would be big enough for a 10.8 release, I believe. Because of the beat breaker and the sample alchemy, the 32-bit float recording, great. And the mastering assistant. However, it feels like each of those things could have been added into the previous version of Logic just as plugins, right? You didn't need a new version of the software to add in those things. You could have just released those things. They were already working in the iPad version. Rant over. But Logic now is more ready for MIDI 2.0 than, as they say, any other workstation. I don't know if it's true or not, but it feels that way. And we'll be doing a lot with MIDI 2.0 next week. This enhancement is one of my favorites. The record buttons, when manually armed software instrument tracks, they blink. Nice. It's the smallest visual change, and I think it makes a difference. I'm excited for that. There's some new things for the piano roll editor. User-created tuning tables can now be exported, which I think is actually super useful, but I don't use. And then, man, this chat on here is so horrible on my phone. Apple seems to be slowly. Yeah, they are slow with some of that stuff. So the contextual menu notes for the piano roll, the tuning tables, fine, that's great. The articulation set got an update, which barely is used by anybody, but it is used by some people religiously. I think the articulation sets are genius. I just wish that they were more used. And then something that I haven't messed with yet, but I want to mess with, when using her mode tuning, the track inspector offers new options to analyze, apply, or analyze and apply. This is something I've wondered about for a long time. How were the tracks being analyzed for her mode tuning? It's not something that, in theory, you just set and run. If you don't know what this even is referring to, it's a tuning system that allows at least Logic's instruments and any of them that are programmed third party to use it, to use alternate tunings. And with them, because they have alternate tunings, something like a violin, when it's playing the third, the fifth, the seventh of a chord, harmonically speaking, they adjust to play in tune with the natural overtone series. But in a piano, when you play like a chord on a equal tempered piano, you actually are compromising every chord so that you can play in every key. And so, oversimplification, obviously, when you play a string sound with a piano tuning system, it never plays in tune like a real orchestra would. And so that function has always let us do that. Let me see what we got here. Hey, Q. Man, this the chatting thing on here thinks is stinky. Oh, I love that you're talking about it's so true. You are talking about how little we've gotten for our subscription from Logic. We'll talk about that maybe another time. Okay, rant over, but MIDI 2.0 is a really exciting new feature of MIDI, and Logic is obviously ramping up to do it, which is great. It means they're looking forward and not just at the status quo. I think that's a great thing from this. Let's see, there were a couple more things right up at the front here. Stability and reliability, a bunch of quitting things, right? Quit. Improve stability with AUV3 plugins, audio unit version 3. Hanging, quitting, right? It's like all of those things. These are just like things to help it make it better. I'm trying to see if there was anything else up here. Yeah, I think we're just a little bit better overall. Performance. Show hide automation groups is faster. Performance is improved when performing quick swipe, comping, or dividing deeply nested audio take folders. Great. Deeply nested audio take folders. Okay, cool. Performance is improved when copying a larger number of events. Overall performance in the score editor is improved. Awesome. Accessibility, we just got 5 new things here for VoiceOver, whereas the iPad version got like 100. Round trip compatibility, cool. Live loops, a couple things. Sampler, quick sampler, a couple things. I'm trying to see if there's anything important with the sampler ones. All that seems like they were just bugs. Let's see. There's now a command to map samples evenly across the keyboard range when importing into sampler. That's great. That's actually useful. Okay. Step sequencer, a few things. Pretty straightforward though. One of the big things with this version, and let me go back up to the top for a second. It doesn't even say it here. We'll find it down below. Is the ability to use drummer track regions on non-drummer tracks, which is cool. Spatial audio got a couple fixes. Smart tempo got a couple fixes. The mixer, couple fixes. Big news for some users, ARA got some fixes. I think, it's not here, it's down below. Oh, I'll show you in a second. So Plugin Manager now includes the ability to differentiate between Logic Pro, AU version 2 and AU version 3 plugins. Hallelujah. Just easier when you have tons of plugins to be able to sort them that way sometimes. Delay compensation with side-chained plugins is now calculated accurately. Fingers crossed, right? That's a big issue I've heard about a lot. Man, the chat on here is horrible. So I'm hearing people, I can't read what you're saying, unfortunately, because it's like the phone version of chat is jumbled. But I see you talking. But anything with delay compensation, they've had issues with sidechain stuff forever. I'm gonna have to test it out to really make sure in various situations. The repeater and the remix FX, I've noticed that was a problem in the past. I'm glad they fixed it. I did not know that time-based plugins now sound correctly when placed after high latency plugins with low latency mode enabled. Who knew? That's definitely a good catch by the beta testers. couple other things there. Okay, not much. Alchemy. One fix, Apple loops. One fixed. So ARA, this is a resolution of an issue where Melodyne could unexpectedly open clips. Tracks that use ARA plugin now play reliably in sync. And tracks that include Melodyne and another plugin that is in sidechain no longer exhibit unexpected latency. Hopefully that fixes the issues that I've been hearing about with Melodyne. Some automation, some bounce. And then a few drummer and drum machine designer issues. Cool. Editing, I don't know. Everything here seems pretty small fish, except for MIDI editors now offer increased resolution for values when using MIDI 2.0. I was wondering because it's like you could use MIDI 2.0 before this version, and yet every time you would use it, nothing would change. You couldn't see any of the data. It's totally ridiculous. So it's like, why even put MIDI 2.0 if you're only going to just make it a name? Now we're starting to get the power of actually being able to control with it and edit with it. So I think there's a lot of stuff happening with MIDI 2.0, and it's almost time where I feel like I can buy a MIDI 2.0 controller and be able to use it for things. But I am curious to see which of the Logic instruments are really going to do stuff with 2.0. So 2.0 is really a bunch of different things. One of them is the communication with devices is going to really improve. The devices are going to give information to Logic, but also the resolution of things should be improving as well. That's, again, super simplified, but I think it's worth looking into now that they're starting to do more. Let's see, some flex things. Who knew that 6/8 and 7/8 would cause issues with stretch? Ooh, it's like, who would have even, I mean, you have to be really diligent and figure that stuff out as a tester. Let's see. When tracks are imported from a project with a different sample rate, audio files are now converted to the current project sample rate. You should all, and you can do this in the chat, cheer, because this is one of the biggest pains in the butt that we've ever had before. And now hopefully it'll be fixed. It won't just be like playing at a higher or lower pitch. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh my gosh, we've been waiting for that little thing for years, it feels like. Anyway, maybe I'm overstating that a little bit, but I don't feel like I am. Automation data for audio plus C, imports. Okay, cool. These all look like similar but less exciting things in that section. Channel. Cool. Key commands, there's a couple key commands issues that were fixed. Logic Remote now displays and allows control of independent pan sends on faders and pre-post fader send positions. Selecting steps in pattern region. Why can't they do more with Logic Remote? Rant time. Why can't Logic Remote do like surround sound panning or Atmos panning? Answer me. Maybe they can now. I don't think so though. At least not anything I've seen. Maybe I need to look closer with the new update, but let's see. Recording, MIDI, let's see. Free tempo recording on it to a muted track no longer causes the track to unmute. I did notice that actually once. I mean, I have done it. I was thinking I could just mute a track, do free tempo recording to allow me to get what I wanted without having to do it on one of my other tracks, and it kept on unmuting it. It's like the stupidest bugs. Let's see. It is now possible to record on other MIDI tracks by pressing Option while arming a MIDI track. Oh, disable record. Okay, cool. Ooh, it is now possible to disable record on other MIDI tracks by pressing Option. So it's like you can do one and it'll turn off all the other ones. Oh my gosh, that's going to be so useful. Because it means with the new way that we manually record sometimes, and when we do that, it'll just add on to it, right? It won't turn off the other ones. Holding Option while you do that means if you have like tracks down the row, it'll make sure it disarms them. That's super useful. Oof. MIDI input on software instrument tracks that are preceded by 32 or more audio tracks in the track list now works. Oh my gosh. Love it. A few different score things. Nothing revolutionary. Selection-based processing. I wish they would revamp this. Because instead of just processing it, I wish that they would make a list that you can come back and change things later, and it would retain those settings. Probably can't do it because Steinberg has a patent with Cubase or something. Let's see. Okay. Some settings. Share and export. It's like sometimes I don't know how we even made this work, right? Reading some of the bugs, you gotta wonder how this actually all worked. It looks like there were some issues with things not working when MIDI 2.0 was enabled, even though they weren't MIDI 2.0, so that's good. Smart controls, sound library has one. Track stacks, fine. Undo, fine. And then general. There were a couple things in here, but just a bunch of it's like some of these lists seem so random every once in a while. Track sorting now works as expected. Okay. Let's see if there's anything here. I thought there was one or two things because I've read through this obviously before starting the video, but I didn't make notes. It's a little bit more reactionary. I like it when it's just reading through and talking about it. Let's see. There's some things here with this one for control surface should have been up with the control surface section. It's like they had everything organized and these are just ones that they forgot and put them all together at the end. Let's see. Oof. I think that's pretty much it. Okay. Oof. So a lot of small stuff. Not as much in terms of the big stuff, because the mastering thing is obviously one of the big things. And I just made a video like a week or two ago, right, about Logic Pro and, well, really FL Studio, which added a mastering section. Now, I like what's in Logic better than the one in FL Studio, because with FL Studio, you get to choose the type, and you can even do 2 at a time, but you don't get any settings. You literally just get to listen and then change the preset and listen again and change the preset. But with this one, we have more control. We have stuff over the imaging, the overall dynamics, the EQ curve, and so we have more control. I would say something like Isotope being the holy grail. They're so good. Logic's a mastering assistant in the middle, perfect for somebody who doesn't want to pay for Isotope or doesn't have all the knowledge. Great. And then something like FL Studio for somebody who can't even do anything with the controls if they had them. So it's all different levels of things, right? Now with FL Studio, you can still go straight up like DistroKid or something, but I'm sure to make that deal, Apple would have to agree to play nice with another company for once, and they don't want to start that trend of people thinking that they do that. Okay. Yeah. Things we didn't get. And I didn't actually see on this list, I didn't see the thing about the drummer track, which allows us to have the drummer region on any track. It's like I just went through the whole list. I didn't see it. But I saw it online. And that's useful. It's not useful because we could already do it. Sure, we couldn't move that region on just to a different track, but with the drummer track, it's an instrument track essentially that has the drummer region. All you had to do is go to your mixer. So if you're not updating to the new version of Logic, but you want to do this, just go to your mixer, and then where the drummer is loaded, you can just load in any third-party drummer track, and it's controlled by the drummer region. So this is like a non-issue. It's stupid. You could even do an external instrument loaded up and then send it to like some other MIDI drums or anything, V drums, and have it triggered by that. Or there were these cool little devices that were MIDI triggered that you actually attach to the drums. The company has gone out of business now, so there may be somebody else doing it, but there was like this one that was like a couple years ago, just everybody was really into. I guess they were into it without buying it because they went out of business, or they got bought by somebody. I don't know, one of the two. So very few things are a change to actual Logic's core functionality, right? I've been watching Facebook with people posting, everyone's like, ooh, the tuner plugin now looks different. And that came out, the new version of that came out in a previous update, so none of that came out this time. No real new drummers, no new drummer functionality. With the iPad version, we're still missing things like the groove track and the score. And some of the flex type stuff. It's like, I'm getting so impatient with this incremental stuff that Apple's really into right now. And trust me, I'm not complaining about an update with cool things. And as you know, I love Logic. But some of the stuff is driving people crazy. Maybe we should talk about the elephant in the room, which is the fact that, you have to have one of the last couple versions of OS 10 or Mac OS. What are we on right now, right? I wonder if, let me pull it up real quick. Okay. Logic Pro. System requirements. There we go. Yeah, so I keep on saying OS 10, but it's not OS 10. Let's see where I'm on the website. It's like we haven't been on OS 10 in a long time. Where are you, list? I don't even know if this is the right one. Their website. Apple has not updated their website, looks like. Let's go. I find myself every once in a while wishing that I wanted to use a piece of software by a small company. And so I wish every once in a while that that it was a group that we could get to know and we could talk to and everybody could be in on everything that's happening with it. And yet here we are, and I decided that I wanted to like a company that's on one hand trying to take over the world, and on the other hand so secretive that you can't even tell what they're doing most days. And someone just commented, but I'm getting, yeah, it requires Ventura 13.5. Man, I don't know why this chat is so horrible. There we go. And I was wondering if it's like they, in the last version of all the iOS and Mac OS, they did all this stuff with their cameras. So when I'm on Zoom, if I like raise my hand or something, then things happen on the screen. They built it into the operating system. Some of that stuff is like, why are we spending so much time on all of these gimmicky things? And why aren't we like actually building stuff that's super useful? Okay. I was still looking for a second, even though we found the answer from somebody. I wanted to see their website. See if they had actually updated all of it. Oh my gosh, they're so dumb sometimes. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Next week, after I've actually had a chance to put in some of my projects into the new version and test it out, we will be looking at more of this and actually looking at some of those apps. I know you're going to have options to look at these in a few different places, but I think it helps. I think it helps to have options. We should all be grateful for the time being that Apple did not Make this subscription. Maybe that's going to be saved for Logic 11. Who knows? That means with Logic 10.8 coming out today, we're looking at at least a year now before they do something with 11. And it may just be that they go to Logic 10.9 at some point. I'm looking at the website right now. Let me flip this camera back around, although I changed my angle. So there we go. Right. This is not the actual version. This is the App Store. Just showing, because on the App Store they have the version that's updated. I don't see anything surprising with that. Interesting which ones they're showing us all the colorful things. Oops, that's not what I wanted. So version, it's 1 day old. They didn't put anything on here that we didn't already have. Let's click on the more button. I wonder, here's a question, and maybe somebody on the chat knows, but the mastering assistant, I wonder, we're gonna have to go look. I wonder if that does Atmos mastering or surround mastering. That's gonna be, I mean, this list makes it sound so great. Let's do that real quick. We had it in here. Let's see, right there. Mastering assistant, we're just gonna go peek there real quick. And I'm sorry, we're having some issues with the, me being able to read the messages on my phone. So, I mean, it looks cool. There's no way. It's like, what? They're missing so many opportunities by not making this actually work if it doesn't with Atmos and being able to do down mixes from Atmos into other formats. But I wonder if this even does surround sound. It's like, how could Apple insist that people do Atmos spatial audio mixes, put in Atmos into Logic Pro, and then decide not to actually do this with like their mastering tool for spatial audio? Oh, I think that's where we're going to end the stream for today. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And I'm going to go back and read these messages later. Oof, lots of questions. Lots of subscription talk. Okay, we're gonna pull the plug. I might try to do one more stream before I get back to my station, or just maybe upload a video looking at some of these things for the iPad version, because that's the computer I have with me right this moment. And then we'll be back with the full beast mode Mac Studio Ultra this weekend. Thanks, everybody. I will talk to you later.